see it fly.
As long as it doesn't crash into our ceiling, you're going to love it. You just don't want to destroy it, but we're going to have fun with it. And we're going to get started in just a minute here. Anybody have any questions? Do you want me to introduce you right now?
It's up to you. I don't know that I really need the microphone, or maybe he wants me to have it. I don't know.
Why don't you stand where you're going to stand and we'll check it out and see if you can be heard. Richard Scearce, who's going to do a program on the Wright brothers for us today, and he is fantastic. Now we're going to test and see if you can hear him without a microphone, and if you can, we'll get started.
Testing 1, 2, 3. You read me?
Yeah.
Well, should I just go ahead and go? Or?
Why don't you go ahead? I'll tell Mark that
I thought Mark had something to say too.
Yeah, Mark might have something to say.
Does the videotape need a microphone feed?
I think you can do it without.
I'm picking it up off of here.
He's just using a regular microphone, but I don't know, the speakers are up there. I'm not sure if that would benefit him very much.
All the history for lunches are from noon to 1, and they're all on the third Tuesday of the month. The next one coming up is George Lippisch speaking about his father, Alexander Lippisch, and he will be talking about this man who is more than an aeronautical engineer. He's a Renaissance man, composed music and done some even artwork and various things. So he's going to talk about that. And in November is another program related to Right to Flight, Countdown to Glory. We'll be hearing about Iowa's astronauts, and we'll be hearing from Wade Wagner. You may be familiar with Wade Wagner. And Don Phillips, who is going to do a program in December. We have a tentative date for this program. He's sitting right here, and Don is going to expand upon the music of Alexander Lippisch. Then we have other events. We have some children's programs on September 7th, and again with Richard Scearce on Thursday, September 18th. Those are programs where children can learn about flight and build some models. And we're going to have a few tours. Mark might expand upon here. One of them is a graveyard tour that doesn't have to do with Right to Flight, but it's just going to be an historic tour where you'll actually get to meet some of these people. It's not often that you get to meet people who've already died, but you're going to meet them. And the Flying Farmer bus tour is going to be a fascinating tour of the early airstrips in Linn County, and that will be done by Carl Carson and Don Heald. Mark Hunter and I will be there as well, and Richard Scearce is going to join us. So that should be a really cool, good day. All right, I think I've taken up enough of your time. Do you have anything to add to that?
We don't know if it's called graveyard or cemetery tours. They're going to be at Oakdale Cemetery. We've been asked for a long time to do some tours of the cemetery. I think early October would be a good time to do it. So keep an eye out for that. One of the other events that we talked about. The only thing I'll say about Richard is he's the best Wright brothers specialist in the history I know. So pretty good pilot in his own right. Called with Richard over Linn County, so really get to know Linn County and pilot over Linn County. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and do the official.
Thanks, Mark.
No problem.
Mark has, just so you know, Mark and I have done a lot of research together, so I think we make a good team because, he's got the Cedar Rapids history down, which I'm not really all that up on, but so I'm just kind of involved in the history of aviation. I'm starting to get more interested in history in general, but I'm really interested in history of aviation, particularly Wright brothers. And I grew up near Dayton, Ohio, so I've always been fascinated with the Wright brothers. And honestly, I had read biographies of the Wright brothers, but I guess it didn't occur to me. I didn't realize even when I moved here that the Wright brothers lived here. And so I really have tried to find out everything that I can. There's just such limited amount of documents and artifacts and things. And Mark's helped me. We try to find out everything that we can. One of the things that I'm hoping is going to kind of come out of speaking to people at different places and And as it gets closer to the centennial, the 100-year anniversary of Power and Flight in December, there's going to be a lot more interest, and there may be some people out there with photos at home, with information that we don't know, because when they lived here from 1878 to 1881, and the bishop went to, he was a bishop in the United Brethren Church in Christ, and so he would go to a lot of functions. He would be involved in administrating weddings and funerals and things. And so I imagine there's lots of pictures laying around in people's attics and things that we would love to get a hold of. So we're hoping that we can get some help too. These are pictures that were taken in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I had seen these pictures a lot in books, and I've known that they lived in Cedar Rapids, and I've read it in several of the books. Many of the books don't even mention that they lived in Cedar Rapids. But the more responsible ones mention that. And I'd seen these pictures, and of course, you knew that they lived there, but, until I went to Wright State University in Dayton, and the curator, Don Dewey, who was actually in charge of publishing the father's diary, she gave me access to that stuff, and even let me, just gave me the file of his diaries, the pictures and things, and I even took the pictures to the copy machine with white gloves on to protect them. And you take these pictures and you turn them over, and there it says right on there, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And so I'll show you a scanned image of the back of one of the pictures. But Orville was just 1 or 2 months shy of 7 years old, so he was 6 years old. And when you look at these, a lot of the children's books of the Wright brothers, a lot of them are terribly inaccurate about when they were children. And even some of the, I found some errors in some of the the best biographies, look at the top 2 or 3 best biographies, there's errors in there too. And but some will say that Orville was 7, but he was 6 years old when they moved here in June 11, 1878, and Orville was 11. And in Bishop's diary it says that they stayed at the Grand Hotel that first night, that they moved into an old brick dwelling in Bohemian, and the Adams house. And then I think a lot of biographers thought that meant that they lived on Adams Street, and so it's mentioned in fact in the only biography that was authorized by Orville Wright, by Fred Kelly. He mentioned that they lived on Adams Street, and Mark and I, we worked on that so hard, we don't think that that's true. But they lived at Adams' house, and we searched and we found a boarding house that was owned by a guy named Adams, and it's on 158 Jefferson Street, which is now 4th Street. And I've never seen that in any other biography, so that's one piece of information I think that we've uncovered that people outside of Cedar Rapids, outside of this room, probably aren't aware of that address. And I've talked to some of the biographers about it, and they're real interested about it too. So let's go on to the next slide here, please. I just wanted to share with you my airplane. It's not a fancy one, but this right down here is my Cessna 172, parked in front of an F-16 there. And I think this was at the Waterloo Fly, Iowa 2 years ago. And then I wanted to tell you also that you can feel comfortable getting up, and I know some of you are going to be going in and out because I teach high school mathematics and science, so I'm used to distractions, and I hope you guys will be well behaved though. But and the other stuff they know. Let's go on to the next one. The article, some of you guys have got the newsletter. that was in the History Center about the Wright brothers. I wrote that article with Mark's help. And this is a project that I've had for a few months that I'm just kind of getting started. I'm learning about this 1946 air coupe, and it's in pieces right now. It's no engine. I just have the fuselage. I've got all the pieces, most of the pieces. And this one down here is what I'm hoping that it's going to look something like that when I'm done with it. And it's going to take a number of years, but it's just an 85 horse air coupe built in 1946 with the convertible. So that's kind of my dream. It's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money, which I have very much of right now. But in time down the road, I'm hoping to get it to look like that and fly like that. Okay, go ahead. I've already mentioned a few of these things. I'm trying to give you information about the biographical information about the Wright brothers, and also I'm going to try to persuade you that these events that occurred here for those 3 years that the Wright brothers lived there were extremely important, and not only the development and the series of events that led up to the invention of the airplane. So I think they're very significant in the Wright brothers, but also in the history of aviation as well. And I mentioned, if you did read my article, I mentioned in there that although Dayton is where the Wright brothers did all of their building of their airplanes and their designing, everything was built there, and then they took it back apart and they shipped it out to Kitty Hawk, and they experimented out there because of the constant winds and the nice soft sand. And so Ohio claims to be the home of aviation, and of course Kitty Hawk, they say they claim to be first in flight because the flights happen there. But I kind of think that Iowans deserve the title of here being the cradle of aviation. And I will talk more about that when I talk about the Pinot helicopter that their father brought home to them and first inspired them. I've got a replica that I built that I can show you, and I've got a commercial version of it that I'm going to actually attempt to fly too. So let's go to the next. Who they were, where they lived, where they learned, where they worshiped, and the historical significance. Okay, go ahead. Wilbur, born April 19, 1867, died January 30th, 1948. He contracted very strong form of typhoid when he was out on the East Coast, and only 45 when he died. And this is a photo again that I was scanned from the photo from their personal collection, and if you turn that photo over, it says Cedar Rapids on the back. Go ahead.
Is that perhaps 1908?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Wilbur actually died in 1948.
No, Wilbur died in 1912.
1912, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was pretty close.
Yeah, I got the.
Can we go back?
Yeah, go back one time.
That's your question, Arthur.
See, that's the 1948 is the year that Orville died. Sorry about that. I got a little bit ahead of you here. But he was 45. Everything else is right except for it was 1912 instead of 1948. Okay? That's, this, I hope you guys please let me know if you see anything else wrong here. I want it to be right, of course. I had some problems last night. My file got too big for memory on my computer, and I had to rip out half of the slides and put it in a second file. So this is probably going to be a little incoherent too, especially when I get to the finish. But anyway, there's 5 or 6 entries in Milton's diary, and they 1881, where, I'm sorry, in 1878, where Orville contracted diphtheria and nearly died. And he mentions in his diary that, especially at night, he said that Orville has sinking spells and appears to be nearly gone. That is what he mentions in his diary. Next.
That person that born date was 1871, another 1970.
Is that what it said, 19?
Yeah.
18.
Obviously.
Yeah, we should have had more again at this
They
one.
didn't do the age, right?
Yeah, he wasn't born, yeah, he's older now. 1871, and what was born in 1867. Okay, sorry about that. This is the first, this is a postcard that Orville wrote. It says up in the top here, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, April 1st, 1881. And I'm going to read it to you. Bear with me. It says, I got your letter today. The teacher said I was a good boy today. We have 45 in our room. The other day I took a machine can and filled it with water and put it on the stove and waited a little while, and the water came squirting out of the top about a foot. The water in the river was up in the cracker factory about half a foot. There is a good deal of water on the island. The old cat is dead. Your son. So this shows, not only the fact that he was curious about science at that very young age, but that his mother in particular, but his parents in general, were very tolerant and very supportive of that. And then it's funny when you read in the biographies, what a lot of times they do is they'll cut out a couple of these sentences and it makes it sound like they put the can squirts hot water out and the cat's dead, like you killed the cat with the hot water. But you see the context, you can see that. But when you look at, I have this book called The Letters of Wilbur and Orville Wright, and this is the first entry of that, and then it's like 10 years goes by until there's another piece of documented writing from the Wright brothers. So again, another very important document, and this is in the Library of Congress. Next slide, please.
Just to see real
Yeah.
quick here, just to mention the really great references to Cedar Rapids, and they're also the island obviously refers to Mays Island. Joe perhaps mentioned that the father actually oversaw some baptisms on
He mentions it in his diary that today we did baptisms at Mays Island, at the north end of the south end of Mays Island. One of the interests that mentioned that.
The cracker factory they're referring to was an old cracker factory about where Silicon furniture store is now. It was called Shaver and Bells. And so obviously we right next to the river, it would flood from time to time. So it fits in very well with what we know of Cedar Rapids in that time.
And it's interesting too here how the fairly simple address, Milton Wright, Omaha. That's all that was legal. And the father traveled. He was gone more than he was at home traveling in his district and going to conferences and setting up, organizing things. And so he would go to the post office and get whatever mail that was there.
There was also an epidemic, a big period epidemic in that year that we were referring to.
Well, after Orville got it and almost died, the older brother Warren also contracted it. Okay, next slide. This is Milton, father. I hope these numbers are right. Born 1828, died 1917, age 88. This photo also was taken in Cedar Rapids. And there's the day I already mentioned that he moved here with his family. And the next slide shows S.T. Williams, photographer. And you see this says Milton on the back, and this is some documentation that I'm sure, I don't know for sure, but I think Wright State University probably did that in their cataloging of all of the, because the Library of Congress took the top, I think, like 100 things that what they thought were the best 100 things out of the Wright brothers, all of their stuff, and then everything else that was left over got donated to the Wright State University. So they have an archive there in their library, and they also have a beautiful full-scale Wright Dryer model inside the library, and you can do research, and they have lots of stuff, and they have lots of stuff on microfilm, and all their diaries are on microfilm. Next slide. This mother, Susan, she doesn't, I gotta believe she was probably, looks kind of ill there actually. She looks better in some of the other photographs. That this is just the one that I was able to get a nice image of. But she was very significant in the development, in the learning of the Wright brothers. Her father was a wagon maker and was very skilled, and she was very skilled, and it was because Father Milton was gone all the time, she had to do the repairs around the house. She taught the Wright brothers a lot of working with tools and so forth. She was very significant, and she was also very, like as I mentioned before, tolerant and supportive. And they also had a very, at that time, I guess you would call them, pretty extensive and pretty interesting and eclectic library that the Wright brothers, really studied extensively. Catherine or Katie Wright was born on the same day as Orville, but 3 years later, 3 years younger. Died age 54. This is another photograph that was, notice I've even got the date because I got it right out of their Milton's diary that mentions that on that entry, March 22nd, 1881, took Katie to give her negative for her photograph. And then the other date that I had for Milton and the two boys, they went together on that day to get their photo. So we know the exact day that these photos were taken. By the way, she also was very instrumental in the success of the Wright brothers in her work. She didn't marry until very, very late in her life, and so she was always a part of the family. And the Wright brothers, neither of them ever married, and so they were a very tight-knit unit. Especially her role kind of took over as mother of the house when Susan died. And so she took care of the house, and they ran their bicycle shop, and they experimented and built airplanes, and she was very instrumental and supported them tremendously.
I was going to mention real quick, Richard Foster is very well known. Some of us who work in the library and archives have seen Lynn's name numerous occasions, and he was located in the old storefront across First Street from about where the federal courthouse is now down there. So you kind of get the idea that the road along the river down there was really the hopping place down in Cedar Rapids at the time of the Wright brothers.
And when a company sells to another company, those negatives go with that company. The negatives to these pictures may be laying around somewhere. I know they also recycle the silver off of them. Maybe that happened, but there's probably a lot of things laying around in different people's houses that if we all look, maybe some will come out. Maybe we'll find the negatives for these pictures. That I think would be remarkable too. Okay, go on to the next one. Neighborhood. Okay, here, Mays Island and the Cedar River. This is the Sanborn Insurance map of 1884. I just kind of want to generally point out a few things. When they first moved, they didn't have a church building. They attended church in the Dallas building. The post office was in the lower floor, and they worshiped and they had Sunday school up in the upper floor. And that's right here at the corner of 2nd and 2nd. And it says post office right there on the Sanborn map of 1884. They moved in according to his diary, as I mentioned, in the Adams house in Bohee Town. And from looking at the city directory, There's an Adams house, it's a boarding house, and that is, and I'll show you that is 158 Jefferson. So that will be correspond to along here on 4th Street. Okay, right here is, see, that's the school right there, right? And so right down in here somewhere. Right in there. Okay, that's would be the area of, this would used to be called Jefferson Street. And right in there is where we think, because it's, you know, if you look at that map, it shows a boarding house. It says it right on there, and we think that's it.
I found her part of it in a second.
Okay.
Just remind you, that's now the train tracks that run through downtown.
Yeah, the tracks are still
Before
there.
that was a train track border, that was a regular street called Jefferson Street. And there were houses that later years simply faced the train tracks in downtown. And that was actually called Linn Town, that close to downtown. Because the original Linn immigrants did live that close to downtown before they went farther south into the city. So Linn Town really referred to anywhere from 4th Avenue down to the packing house at that time.
And many of these houses were moved to different places in the city. So it is possible that that house is still around, although we can't find any evidence of it, that there's any of the houses that the Wright brothers lived in, which there were at least 3, and maybe 4 or 5. But we, as far as we could tell, there was none in existence. It would really be great if we could come up with a house that we could document that this is where they live, and then, you know, we could make it into something, you know, to enjoy. Now here is Adams School. Now they moved in 1878, and Adams School was completed in 1880. So we think that that they did, at least Orville went to Adams School, and then right here. Right here is, well, let me do the, right here is 5th Avenue, which was Green Street. Now I'm going to show you a document that is the 1880 Federal United States Census that lists the Wright brothers and the family living at 104 Green Street. And I found, you'll see it showing that that corresponds to 5th Avenue. And so right here's Washington, the old Washington High School, where we know for sure Orville, and probably Wilbur went to school there too. And we have documentation of Orville going to school there, I'll show you. And then, so that would be right back behind here, would be where they, at 104 Green Street, that we know they live there. Okay, and the other thing, the other address is 184 Iowa Avenue. Now right here is the History Center where we're at. So just across the corner here is the Commercial Federal Bank, and this is, we have this address in the city directory that Milton and the 2 brothers are listed in there too. I'll show you that too. So we know for sure that they live there. And so the only other thing would be the church, which is at 7th Street and 4th Avenue. Right here is the church. Is the church that they built. I'll show you a letter that Orville wrote explaining how he helped in the cutting of the sod of that church, and helped, and his father was overseeing the building of that church. And that was completed, I think, you said 1881, or was it 1880? One of those two, that church was completed. Let's go to the next. This is a letter written in 1939 by Orville. Wilbur died in 1912, so this is 1939. And he talks about down here, he says, he talks about, that he says the post office was below where they went to church when they first moved there. But this is kind of interesting here. It says, one of my most vivid recollections of this time was the sodding of the churchyard. Mr. Drury called upon Wilbur, who was then 12 years of age, and me for help. I suspect the call was for Wilbur only, and that I just went along. Mr. Drury managed the handles of the sod cutter, and Wilbur led the horse. When the weight of the cutter proved too little to keep it down properly, I was made as a passenger to serve as a sort of ballast. The riding of the sod cutter made me so sore I walked with pain for a week. That's what he remembers about Cedar Rapids. It also talks about the windows, and it's a really nice letter. And it's available. A lot of this, I think almost all the stuff that I have is available downstairs in the library and for you to look at if you want to. Let's go to the next one. Here's the 1880 U.S. Census. I got this over at the genealogical library over there using a Soundex. It was real easy. And then, printed it up for a quarter. This just says Milton Wright, and this stuff over here is what they use to catalog things. Color white, male, 51 years of age. He was born in Indiana. This is Linn County, Rapids Township, Cedar Rapids. And here's the address right here, 104 Green Street. And again, that corresponds to 5th Avenue in Cedar Rapids. Susan was 49, Rushlin was 19, Lauren was 17. I haven't mentioned much about the older brothers, but they both older brothers went to Western College. Rushlin went to College. He gave a speech in one, it mentions in Milton's diary that he won a $20 prize for giving a speech, and the title of the speech was Evidences of Christianity. So it's kind of hard to comprehend what a $20 prize would be back in those days. It must have been pretty substantial for his speech. And then the only thing, there's a fact I don't have here is the other side of this, and it has Katie, age 5. Okay? Go ahead.
Ages at 18,
Susan was 49, Rushlin 19, Lauren 17, Wilbur 13, Orville was 8. And again, this says 1880, but that probably means it was 1879, right?
We're not sure what part of the year the census would have taken place.
That I don't know. And then I don't have the youngest daughter, Katie, which is 3 years younger than Wilbur to the day.
It's not excluded, it's clear in the back that there's no number.
And I didn't want to scan another object for that. So, but I've got it over here if you want to see it. Let's go on to the next one. This is Wolf's Cedar Rapids City Directory. And I think this is 1880, 1881. We have 3 or 4 of them down there. I didn't write it down like I should have, but in one of those city directories down there, here they are listed. Lauren and Rushlin both were students at Western College. Lauren actually went, and it's mentioned in his diary, he went to Marion, took a test to be certified to be a teacher, and he taught a term in a one-room schoolhouse south of town, south of Cedar Rapids. I don't know where.
Western is that the small village that's south of Cedar Rapids?
Correct.
Right. There is it's near Ely, and there was a train that went there, and so they'd get on the train, or sometimes take a buggy, I guess, but mostly they would take the train to Ely, and then they would have to get a pack or a catcher cab to go to Western. And I've got a picture of that big old sim, one of the buildings, and it's massive, and it's really, really an interesting looking place. And I guess I've heard that the foundations of those buildings are all still there. The buildings are gone, but the foundations, I think, are still there.
It's related to Cook College.
Right. Western College, they primarily graduated people who were going to be ministers of the United Brethren Church in Christ. But in about 1882, I think, or somewhere, give or take a year, they had financial problems. They moved to Toledo, either came or Toledo, and became called something else, and then it merged with Code. So it became Code. Okay, go ahead. sheet that I showed you on the other Sanborn map that is the railroad tracks. Here's the Fifth Avenue, which corresponds to Green Street. And we found this, right here is Washington School, where it became the American Legion, and remember the bowling alley that was right there. I remember when I first moved to Cedar Rapids in about 1984, 85, I remember going to that bowling alley there. Now it's what goes in.
True North Insurance.
True North Insurance Company is right there now. And right here is Park.
Actually, the other one.
This one?
Top.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Green Square Park.
Green Square Park is right here. Here's Washington School. And then right here it says, and again, you can't see very well on here, but if you look at the Sanborn map itself, 104 Green. And now it's changed to 410, I think, or something else. But when they made this map, they put the old house numbers below the new house numbers. So this is it. And it says boarding right there. This is where they live. It's too bad that house isn't still there.
What do you know? It's all part of it.
Yeah, in fact, I'll show you a picture. I don't have a picture of that particular parking lot, but it's the one right in front of the new parking garage. It's right there. This is Commercial Federal Bank, taken from out the window of my car as I was driving by the History Center. And so this is where the 184 Iowa Avenue is. I've been in contact with the administrators there at the Commercial Federal Bank. I'm trying to convince them that we need some sort of marker out here. We don't have anything. All we have is, in this whole town, is Wright School and Wright Brothers Boulevard. Anybody think of anything else? And now we have the display downstairs, so I encourage you guys to get a look at that if you haven't. Go ahead. This is the thing, I can probably word these a little bit better. This is 158 South Jefferson. This is the, remember in his diary it says the Adams House. And you look under boarding, and now I've cropped this, but I really don't think there's any more. These are all the boarding houses that are listed in the city at that time, I think. And so that's got to be it. 158 Jefferson, Fifth Avenue. Go ahead. The other thing is I put these pictures in because this is Orville flying in Berlin in 1909. And this is where the world finally took notice of what they had done. In 1903, a lot of people just did not get it. They thought, and it was in the paper that these guys had flown, but they couldn't distinguish heavier than air flight from balloons. And so it really, and then plus, they built a 1904 flyer, and they flew it, and then they built a 1905 flyer, and that became the actual first practical airplane, one that could fly as long as you had fuel in it, and do figure eights and do circles. And then at that point they put it away, they wanted to sell it, they wanted to market it, and so they didn't fly again. And so until 1908, 1909. And then the world really found out what they could do. But the point I want to make here is that these people, now these are all soldiers here. I don't know if I have a picture showing just people, but Alexander Lippisch was there that day that they flew, one of the days that they flew there. And he was even inspired to go home and draw a picture, which was down on display in the History Center exhibit down there. And then, of course, he went on to be a tremendously influential and important aircraft designer. Design is known as the father of the Delta Wing, which is what the space shuttle has, and all the fighter jets have a Delta Wing, which is real good for high speed. Next one. Another connection to Iowa is the Aid Airland. I bet if I asked a show of hands, many of you didn't know that the Wright brothers and their father owned land in Aid Air. And I'm going to tell you what else, as you can see there. He bought that property while he was living here, Bill did. He hired someone to build a house on it. But as far as I know, never lived there. I'm sure he visited it. You know, he kept track of it. But then moved to Dayton, and then years later, 1901. So that's pretty many years later. He gave that to his 4 sons. One of the older ones sold it. They split the money. The Wright brothers used that money to help finance their aviation experiments. And when you drive past Adair, what do you see? You see that great big wind turbine with the great big propeller that's flying. And it just gives me chills when I go by it. I have a whole another series of slides. I think I worked so hard on these. I'm going to show them, and then but we'll go fast because I did want to leave some time for questions too. But let's go ahead and I think that's the last one. Oh, no, yeah, I was going to. Let me show you that too. I better show the church. Let me show you this here. This is a replica that I made from the plans that I found, and this one wasn't built to fly, although it does fly, not that great. But this was designed by a French guy by the name of Alphonse Pinot. He's a very interesting character to study as well. He's a very brilliant aeronautical engineer that is known as the father of model airplanes, and he died very young, tragically. But anyway, there's one of these that I built also on display downstairs. But this is one that you can buy commercially from. Might be able to buy from here from our bookstore down there. But this thing is made of plastic and it's very strong for kids to play with. But I thought I'd let you see it fly, and then what you can do is take that box and illustrate the wing warping, which was the breakthrough, probably the most important, but one of the breakthroughs that the Wright brothers came up with in terms of lateral control of an airplane. To be able to get those wings to level and to bank when he wanted them to. Okay, I'm going to go easy on it here. But this is what Milton came home. The Wright brothers this was 1878 is what most of the books say. So they were 7 and 11. And he brought this home from one of his travels and he gave it to them. And they have mentioned in different articles that they've written, and they even mentioned in court when they were testifying in their patent lawsuits that this is what first inspired them to begin to study the aeronautics.
Yeah.
That's what we'll be doing with the kids next month.
Yeah, we're going to put those together when we do the thing.
It happened to see the
Let's go ahead and go to the next one. And then I can do it here.
Is that just a rubber band?
Yep, rubber band motor. Yeah, this stuff is up here. You guys can look at it if you want. We're hoping to have some. Yeah. That's the same one. Okay, go ahead to the next one. Okay, schools. This is probably the most dramatic piece of evidence that we have. And again, it's one of those things that was found amongst all the school records that was given to the History Center, and there's probably more of this stuff laying around. And I know John, Patrick has been helping me, and he's been looking for stuff, but there's probably more of this kind of thing around. But this, it says Washington School, December 3rd, 1880 term, and it has his name over right there and his attendance record each day. And again, this book is downstairs in our library. Go ahead. we're actually thinking about getting it out to display it in our exhibit.
We do have a copy of that sheet.
Yeah, we got copies of it over there. You can look at it if you want to. Because it shows the other side of it tells you that his teacher was Aurelia Whittam. That was his teacher. I've never seen that name in any of the books either. This is Washington School, and that's the school that we know Orville at least went to, and probably Wilbur too. And I showed you that on the map where that was.
That's the original building before they built the large stone high school. This is the original Washington building.
We built that large stone high school, and then they tore it down. And then that's where they built then the American Legion, and maybe something before that. This is Jefferson School. As you, a couple of blocks over here, as you're going down the road to get on the freeway, you see the Knights of Columbus, and you will see this same stone retaining wall. Thanks. Same, still there. Same one. Same thing in front of Adams School. It's still there. Same retaining wall. Except they thought that was an old-fashioned looking building. They tore it down and they put up what they thought was the Knights of Columbus. No offense to them who enjoy like that building and work there or whatever. But I think this is superior to that. They thought that was a nice modern looking building. Well, I think they were wrong.
This old school was used by the Knights of Columbus before they built their new building. And previous to that, it had been the Board of Education before they went to the old Grand High School.
Go on. This is a picture that I don't really have time to get too involved in, but a lady told me that her, one of these guys was her uncle, great uncle or something, and that they always been told that Wilbur was in their class, and I got a hold of this picture, and I thought that looked a lot like Wilbur. And we did a little research on it, and I still think that there is a chance that is Wilbur, because when you compare, we've got a picture of him when he's about a year younger, and then we got that picture that I showed you already, and you put those three together, and it looks, everybody that I showed said, yeah, that's possible. It's not like it's real obvious or anything. I mean, he's got, Wilbur always has big ears sticking out, and all these pictures right there in that one too. So, I think that has some potential, but even if it's not, this is Jefferson School. You can tell by the architecture, and it's just an interesting photo. And if he's not in there, he probably took a picture and probably is in one that looks like that, just like that. And again, it's probably laying around in somebody's attic. Go ahead. Here's Adams School, and again, same retaining wall. Let's see, not on this side, but on this side, right?
It was there for about a month ago.
It was there until about a month ago. Mark and I and Dan Sullivan and Galen, the four of us, and there probably were other people too. I think they helped out. There were some other people, but we worked very hard to expose. What had happened was, in the 1960s, they tore this whole school down, except they left this one wall right here. Everything else was gone. And then they come out and they built walls out here, and they built a warehouse using this first floor of this wall. So that the outside of Adams School became the inside of that warehouse. And you could, until a month ago, you could go inside that warehouse and look at the building. The windows were bricked up, of course, but the same beautiful limestone or sandstone. Well, actually, this right here is a keystone that.
See the upper floor there.
Right there.
Above the windows.
See that? See each of those? Right there's one of them. That came out of the rubble when we dug around it. This is the cornerstone from the United Brethren Church. You know, I got a picture that shows that. Let's go on through this.
Well, this is more than that.
Yeah, this is sitting on the top of that warehouse, and so this wall right here was actually a part of Adams School. And I like this picture because it shows the neighborhood where the Wright brothers played and lived. Here's that new parking garage, which they lived right in front of that on 4th Street. And then Fifth Avenue is right there. Their church is right up here. This is their playground where they lived and played. Let's go to the next one. Here's a picture of Mark and Dan holding pictures of Adams School there. And this is the wall behind it. We took off the steel at great peril of blood. We got that steel off. And this was the, just the 2x4s that held it up. You can see the plaster there, and you can see the windows here have been bricked up. You can see down here there's the wainscoting, and then this is a piece of wood that they put across there so that the chairs of the school wouldn't, would bump up against the wall. So this is the inside of Adams School right there. And it's too bad that they tear it down. It's gone, but the Staymates owns that property. They're going to put it into some parking lots and kind of green area, and they say they're going to try to incorporate all those stones that were part of the retaining wall and the stones that were part of the, can't see them up here, but they're great big archways, headers. Okay, go on. Churches. This is the church that was built in 1910. Although Mark was telling me this morning that based on the look of this architecture, the way that this is, these windows are, and these windows are, and the way it compares in the middle, this could actually be the original 1880 or 1881, whatever it is, the church that was built by the Wright brothers and their father, and the sod was done by at great pain to Orville. That's the building right there at the corner of 7th Street and 4th Avenue. And right here it is. Right here's a picture that I took, I think in the spring, this past spring, showing here's 7th Street, here's 4th Avenue, there's an apartment building back here, and the church stood right here now as parking lot. And you can see this is may have been the original curb. This sycamore tree maybe could have been planted there by Milton. Question?
Did the United Brethren drop the UB and just become Church of Christ?
They became St. Andrews something or
There
other.
was a split in the church, and this church became known as St. Andrews in later years.
Then it became.
Today's Church of Christ.
I think it may be a grandfather that I agree with you. There was a lot of division.
I remember we attended the United Brethren Church in Scearce, and I don't know what that's called today.
That's right next to Western.
The lady that gave me that photo
Yeah.
that I told you that I thought might be, her mother also went to that church.
In Scearce.
Her name was,
Our sons.
well, I would have known what her name was, but Kriminek was the name of the lady that gave
It's
it.
a nice little old church.
Joe Kriminek was the guy that was also in that picture. Yeah, but of course, that's not. But now United Brethren Church, I had no idea how big it was. It was huge back then.
It must have been huge.
It was because, first of all, they split in half, and half of them merged with the Methodist Church and became known as United Methodist Church. It was just Methodist Church, and it was United Brethren Church, and they merged and became United. So the United Methodist is from United Brethren. And then the other half, they're still here. I mean, I got on the website and I called the guy, the librarian, he goes, we're still here. And I think they still are against secret societies. I might be wrong on that, but that was one of the main reasons they split in two, is because Milton was one of the leaders of that, was against, he was an anti-secrecy. He went to an anti-secrecy society meeting in West Branch while he lived here, and he was against the secret societies, the Masons, the Oddfellows, whatever. And so he was against those, and so that caused it, and that's why he lost his bishop election in 1881, and that's why 10 days later they moved out of Cedar Rapids. Go ahead. This is the great big United Brethren Church in Lisbon. In 1881, that's where they had the national annual conference. That's where they had the election that I was just telling you about that Milton lost and wasn't reelected as bishop.
Is that still there?
I think this part of it is. I think it's right there at that main intersection of Lisbon, towards Highway 30, right there on the right by that corner, that main intersection. I think it's an apartment building. I think it's still there. There's a historian over there by the name of John Bardsley that I've talked to on the phone a few times, and he said he has a picture that he gave me, and I just haven't made contact with him yet. But a lot of entries in Milton's diary of him, and sometimes taking the boys to Lisbon and spending the night and having meetings, and that was a very, very active United Brethren church right there in Linn.
It's like college.
Pardon?
We have college.
Yes. This is, here I'm at the end here. This is, and May 21st is when they had the election, and then in June 1st they finished packing and they left and they moved to Indiana and they lived there for a couple of years and then they moved to Dayton and that's where they spent the rest of their lives. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. I know it's 1 o'clock now. I'm supposed to be done in 1, but I'm not in any hurry. If you guys want to ask some questions, if you want to come up and look at some things, we really need a couple more hours to really explore this further. And I'm hoping to get better at it and do some presentations and get it better and do some other ones later. Mark said something about maybe we have one here even as it gets closer. You're going to really be hearing a lot more information about the Wright brothers as it gets closer to December 17th. And then you probably won't hear much about them again for another 100 years. Until then, I brought 3 of what I think are the best biographies. If you'd like to know my opinion of that, and maybe I think it would be appropriate for you to get a hold of one of them and read it before December. Any questions? Go ahead.
How can we get one of those helicopters?
We're going to have them real soon, probably in a matter of days, aren't we, Martin?
Yes, we're having the workshop is Thursday, September 18th, 5:30 to 7, and it costs $5.
All those blue sheets that are having.
Richard will be back.
And this, what's so clever about this
What
box?
keeps the bottom from turning?
Pardon?
The big sail?
What keeps it from turning? Well, it's got these wings. It does turn some,
Okay.
but see, this turns and provides the lift, and then if this wing wasn't here, this thing would spin and the propeller would stand still. But this is what gives it some air resistance so that the propeller turns and this doesn't. But it does still turn a little bit. Anyway, what's really clever about buying this box is that you take the thing out of it and then you can demonstrate what Wilbur actually first discovered, his idea of changing the shapes of the wings for lateral control. And he was literally playing with a box, an inner tube box. They built and sold bicycles, playing with an inner tube box, and it occurs to him that as he's twisting these, this is kind of abused here, but by changing these, it's changing the shape of the wing, and that is how he dreamed up getting lateral control. Until that time, the experimenters had used wing dihedral so that it would just kind of stay stable like that. But that was his stroke of genius, and that is actually what his patent was for. His patent wasn't even for the 1903 airplane. It was the 1902 glider that incorporated the lateral control. And so that was what his lawsuit was, and then those became ailerons, which airplanes today use at the trailing edges of the wings. They move opposite to change the shape of the wing to give the airplane lateral control so that you can stay level or bank and turn the airplane. But that's why I think this is so clever. We ordered some of these, and we probably will be ordering more. It's a nice, and it's very easy to put together and demonstrate. And it's the one thing that our, the Cedar Rapids in Iowa, has claimed to fame in the sense that this is where it all began, right over here across the street. Where can you buy them?
We have a provider here.
We're going to have them on our thing, and there's an 800 number on there too. But you can be able to buy them at a bookstore too.
Sounds great.
So, and I got some plans that you can build your own. But it took me about 4 hours to build that, and it was hard. Anybody else have any questions? you know when to come. They'll tell you. I bet you Bart can tell you pretty quick, because we ordered them.
I'll pass this around, if you're interested in getting information from us, you can, if you have an email address, or an email address. Okay, you can put your name and address.
Yeah, we can order more of them. We can order more of them. And the quote, the information that's on the box is a guy by the name of Nick Engler, who has built a lot of the models. He's just a real influential guy. And I was talking to him at the Dayton Air Show about this Adair property, and he's real interested. He wants to come up here. He wants me to take him up and fly him over the property, get a photo of it, and put it on his website. He's got a really nice website, and I should be able to tell you. It's called Wright Aeroplane Company. And if you just did a web search on Wright Aeroplane Company, and it's really got a lot of good biographical information on it too. And you can buy plans to that. I don't think you can buy that thing, but you can buy plans to how to build one. You can buy plans to how to build it. Actually, we bought that. I bought those plans to build the tunnel, the Linn tunnel, the Wright Linn tunnel, and the airflow testing devices, and we have a replica. Byron and Mike built a replica. It's on display downstairs in our museum.
Thank you, Richard, for being our guest today for District 11. Again, we're here for questions. If you have more individual questions.
Yeah, if you want to stick around, if you want to talk, if you want to look at some stuff I have over here, you're welcome.
Thank you all for coming, and we'll see you again
If you
next
have any
month.
information to share, if you find out